The freestanding roofless Church of Ireland, built around 1760 and altered in 1810, built inside ruins of a freestanding ruined medieval church. This 18th century church retains a strong sense of its original character, coupled with an association with a much older building. The church was built by the Barrymores of Castlelyons, who also built a mausoleum in this graveyard. The building retains interesting features such as the tracery window and the bellcote. The stone chancel entrance shows signs of skilled stoneworking and may be considered of high artistic merit. The church, although now in ruins, retains its social importance to the community of Castlelyons. All that now remains of the 14th century church are two large Gothic arches and what appears to be a bell tower. The gable end on the east-facing wall outlines what would have been once the chancel of the church. The smaller church located inside the archways was built in 1771 and was a Church of Ireland chapel. The east wall of this church boasts a beautiful tracery window, which, it is said, once belonged to the older church. Inside the chancel is a beautifully ornamented Gothic archway, which separates it from the nave. In the graveyard are some of the finest examples of 17th century tombs and headstones in Munster. One of the oldest of the headstones is dedicated to Jane Thomas. It is a Georgian-style memorial dated to 1689. Another headstone dating to 1689 is a scrolled design memorial and is dedicated to Sylvester Jessup and her daughter Sarah May. Two tombs in this cemetery are also 17th century in date. The first of these is dedicated to the Voyle family and is dated 1681, while the other tomb is dedicated to the Peard family and dates to 1683. There is also a mausoleum dedicated to the Peards, who were landlords in the Castlelyons area in this graveyard, and it is thought to be 18th century in origin. Facing eastward, along the churches, is the Barrymore Mausoleum. It is here that the famous lords of Barrymore are buried with their families. Interred here are the remains of David, the first Earl of Barrymore, and his wife, as well as his relatives from Fota Island near Cove in County Cork. Kill St. Anne Cemetery is both a Church of Ireland and a Catholic graveyard. The north-east corner is largely dedicated to those of the Church of Ireland faith. Here, the memorials take the form of plain crosses and gabled tombs. The rest of the cemetery is Catholic, where the memorials range from Celtic crosses to scrolled headstones and table tombs. The sheer height and style of the 14th century church is reminiscent to the bell tower of an abbey. The church was in use until late 1950s or early 1960s. The church was built in the 14th century, and the cemetery dates from the same time. In 1771, a smaller Church of Ireland church was built inside the older St. Nicholas's Church ruin. Both churches date from the 18th and the 14th centuries respectively. The remains of the bell tower and Gothic arches are from the earlier date. The elaborate stone window which are in the ruins are reputed to have belonged to the original church. Whatever the truth of this tale is, the result is beautiful and romantic. It's now only barely possible to see the underground heating system of the chapel. In the southern eastern corner of the nave, there is the remains of a chimney and a small cast iron grate, where presumably the rector of the time lit a fire during service. The tower also displays on its eastern wall evidence of a gable end and the remains of what would have been two walls, perhaps of adjoining rooms. This would imply that the chancel of the church would have been where the Barrymore mausoleum now stands, approximately. Therefore, it is fair to say that the mausoleum was in fact built inside the chancel of the 14th century church. The eastern wall of the church boasts a switchline tracery window. The north wall of the chapel has two Gothic windows, while the southern wall has three. Unfortunately, all five are now bricked up. Kill St. Anne graveyard here in Castlelyons contains some interesting memorials, including the Barrymore mausoleum, burial place of the 4th Earl of Barrymore, the finest example of neoclassical 18th century burial memorial in the country. Kill St. Anne Churchyard is a haven for wildlife and native flowers. Beside the old cemetery is another, newer one still in use and equally well maintained, as were the old abbey ruins and the village itself. Castlelyons may be off the beaten track, but is well worth making the effort to visit. It is rural Ireland at its very best. St. Nicholas's graveyard here in Castlelyons has possibly some of the best examples of 17th century memorials in Munster. The Earls of Barrymore were David, the first Earl, who died in 1642. Richard, the second Earl, died in 1694, followed by Lawrence, the third Earl, who died in 1724. James, the fourth Earl, who commissioned the Barrymore mausoleum in this graveyard, died in 1747, followed by Richard, the fifth Earl, who died in 1751. Richard, the sixth Earl, died in 1782, and Richard, the seventh Earl, died in 1793. And finally, the eighth Earl, Henry, died in 1823. Also dedicated to the Peart family is the south-facing mausoleum in this graveyard. The dates for this mausoleum are uncertain. However, it is most likely to date to the 7th century at the earliest. During a recording module carried out some years ago in this graveyard, 2 headstones were found to date 1689. The oldest of these is a Georgian headstone, which is dedicated to Jane Thomas. The other headstone is dedicated to Sylvester Jessop and her daughter, Sarah May. Two table tombs were also discovered during the recording module in this cemetery, and those dated to the 17th century. The first of these is dedicated to the Voyle family of Castlelyons. The other tomb is dedicated to the Peart family, who were considered tyrannical landlords and who lived in Castlelyons during the 17th and 18th centuries. The earliest section recorded on this tomb dates to 1683. The graveyard here is both a Church of Ireland and Catholic graveyard. The majority of the Church of Ireland memorials are located in the northeast section of this graveyard, and most of them date to the early part of the 20th century. Most of these memorials take the form of plain crosses, gabled tombs, and or cross slabs. There are also a number of Church of Ireland graves in the southern sector of this graveyard. However, the majority of these are Catholic. The memorial types vary greatly. They can range from Celtic crosses to plain headstones and to tabletop tombs. The majority of the headstones in this graveyard are, however, what are classed as shouldered or Georgian. It can be said that this old graveyard of St. Nicholas here at Kill St. Anne in Castlelyons in County Cork is steeped in history, and it is amongst the best example of a 17th century cemetery in Ireland. This cemetery at Kill St. Anne near Castlelyons has some fine examples of artwork and stone masonry, with every form of inscription technique represented, and also a variety of symbols and ornamentation that reflect excellent workmanship. So if you are in the area, why not pay a visit to St. Nicholas's Church and Graveyard here at Kill St. Anne in Castlelyons in County Cork, and see for yourself some fine examples of 17th century memorials, probably the best in Ireland.